Hey everyone, Grayson Roze here with StockCharts.com back in the studio for a big announcement, a major new release coming out on the StockCharts platform today, a huge new resource for you. We are going to explore it all, make sure that you know exactly what has just dropped. But before we do, I want to ask you a question. When you're going through the market, when you sit down in the morning to see what's happening, what is your go-to resource? Where are you turning to see exactly what's happening in the markets? And now, I don't just mean what's happening with the S&P 500 or did the Dow go down today. I mean really digging into the market, understanding breadth and participation, stocks that are advancing, stocks that are declining, understanding investor sentiment. Are investors more bullish, more bearish, somewhere in between, somewhere more in the neutral territory? Understanding what's happening with the sectors and the industries and other asset classes as well. Now, there's a good chance on the StockCharts platform that you have access to all that data. You might know where it is, and you might be jumping from page to page or chart to chart or list to list to go and source all of that data. But with our new market summary page that we're going to be reviewing today that has just rolled out, we're putting all of that data, all of those resources, all of that crucial market information in one page that is custom curated to make it really, really easy for you to show up to this page, study through it, roll through it, understand everything that's happening in the markets, and not have to jump from page to page or resource to resource. Most importantly, you're not going to have to jump from website to website. You've got all of this crucial data in your hands in one place. Now, I have been testing this page out for the last few weeks as the team has been wrapping up the development on it. And I can tell you, especially through the crazy market cycle that we've been going through right now, this page has been an invaluable resource. I've been able to see everything that's happening in the markets, all of the madness, all the heightened volatility, all the spikes in new lows and all of that stuff right from this one page. So today, we're going to spend a little bit of time running through this page, making sure that you're aware of exactly what's here, why we've formatted everything the way that we have. And as we go along, we'll talk a little bit about interpretation, give you some background on kind of why things are the way that they are. Make sure that you're aware of how to use it. Now, the one thing that I want to touch on before we jump into this, there is a ton on this page. So we are absolutely going to fly through this thing. And this video, to start, might seem a little bit overwhelming, to be honest. There is a ton of data on this page, as you are going to see. And it is an invaluable resource that I'm sure is going to become a crucial part of your process. But I want to make sure that you know you can always come back to this video. This will be a helpful guide for you as you start to bring this thing into your process, into your approach, into your daily and your weekly routines. So remember, come back to this video after you've sat with the page for a little while. And I'm sure that as you start to kind of study this thing and use it for yourself, a lot of the things that we touch on in this video will start to make a lot more sense. So if you watch this, you go use the page for a little bit, you go use that new resource, and then you come back and you take another look at this video, I'm sure that things will make even more sense. This page is really designed for you to kind of sit and study things from the top down. Again, it's starting at the very top of the market and it's drilling all the way down into those different internals, market metrics, different things that are moving up and down, sectors, industries, all that good stuff. So this is really a page that's intended for you to start at the top, scan your way through it, maybe mess around with the Timeframe menu that you're going to see at the very top, and really kind of study what's happening in the markets. It's not a quick glance at it and move on. It's a sit with this kind of page type of resource. So with all that out of the way, I'm sure that you're itching to jump over to the site. Let's jump over to StockCharts and take a look at the new market summary page. So first and foremost, you're going to need to get to this new market summary page. Now, a couple of different ways you can do that right here from the members dashboard in our market overview panel that's in the center of the screen. You've got a link to market summary right here. Give that a click. That's going to jump you over to the new page. If you're anywhere else around the site, you can always hit the charts and tools menu. Look for that research tools section, and there's a link to the market summary page. We've even got that new label right there. You can give that a click, and then I'll take you over to that new market summary page. Now, I would highly encourage you to bookmark this thing. Make it something that you're coming to on a daily basis. Daily, weekly, whatever the time frame that makes most sense to you. This is the type of resource that you're going to want to return to over time through different market cycles. Again, I've been using this thing now for a couple of months, really, as we've been wrapping up our final testing. And the fact that it's this consistent lens that you're using to look at the same market, over and over, that's what makes this thing really, really powerful. So coming back to this every day, every week, every month, that's what's going to really make it fly. Now, again, there is a ton on this page. We are going to run through it all, but at first glance, it might seem a little bit intimidating. We're going to break it all down here today, make it a little less scary for you as we unpack everything. But I just want you to remember, this is a page that's intended for you to kind of sit there, study, really spend some time taking it all in. So we'll start up at the top. Now, one crucial part of this page is our time frame menu. So by default, this page is going to start you off on the latest data. If you want to jump to any other timeframes, though, if you want this data to be looking back over the last week, over the last month, maybe year to date, any of those different core timeframes that we like to look at as chartists, you can change that timeframe menu up top. That's going to change the data that you see specifically in the change and percent change columns throughout this entire page. So as we scroll through here, all of those different tables that you're seeing on this page, the data is going to change to reflect the time frame that you select up here at the very top. Now, as you scroll through, you'll see that that little bar actually stays fixed at the top of the screen. So remember that you do have access to that. At the very top of the screen, you can also quick jump down to any of the different sections. So as we're going to see a little bit later in the video, if you want to jump down to something like bonds, commodities, or currencies, which are located further down on the page, you can give those a click to quickly jump down to any of those different groups. You can also navigate back up to the top simply by looking for that floating little arrow button in the bottom right corner. So let's run through things from the top down. Now, one of my favorite features right up at the top of the page are the little mini charts that you get in a horizontal row. Look for these little blue arrows. Those are going to help you navigate back and forth. Or if you have a trackpad or if you're on a touch device, anything like that, you can actually scroll back and forth. Now, again, the default time frame for this page when you first load it is going to be the latest session, today's action. So these mini charts are going to show you 2 days worth of data. You're going to get some core indexes here. The Dow, the NASDAQ, the S&P indexes, the 500, the 400, and the 600, as well as the VIX and 10-year yields. So at a quick glance, you can see exactly what's happening in the latest session with these little mini charts right up at the top of the screen. Again, though, this time frame menu is going to be very helpful. So if you did want to see something like a 1-month chart, well, if you change that time frame, now you're going to also change these mini charts right up at the top of the screen. So that time frame menu, a crucial piece of the navigation for this new market summary page. We're going to leave things on the today time frame for right now. But you can also click on any of these charts. So let's say you were interested in the price action on the S&P 500. You can give that mini chart a click, and that's actually going to open up a chart of the S&P 500 that's pre-formatted for you. That chart is going to look great. It's going to be a great way to visualize what's happening with the S&P 500 or any other index that you click. Now, I'm going to pause there for a second because I do want you to know pretty much everything on this page is clickable. If you're wondering, can I click that? Chances are you probably can. And what we've done is we've spent a ton of time formatting all of the links, formatting all of the charts, making sure that everything on this page leads you to something that makes a ton of sense for exactly what you've clicked on. So for instance, the way that you visualize the S&P 500 is going to be very different than the way that you visualize a breadth index or a bullish percent index or maybe a sector ETF, different things like that. So all of those different links around this page, first off, they are clickable. You can click pretty much anything and it's going to open up a chart or a relevant index, relevant resource for whatever you've clicked on. But also everything that you click is going to be custom formatted to make sense for exactly what you've selected. So we'll touch on some of those features a little bit later on in the video. Next up, though, we've got our first major group. Now, we're going to start with the equity markets because, of course, this is StockCharts.com. Stocks are the most important thing to us. We've got other asset classes further down the page, but this page really is intended to help you drill into the equity markets first and foremost. It's going to default to the U.S. indexes. We've got a huge collection of major U.S. indexes across here. But you also have a couple of key tabs right up at the top. This is something that's going to be repeated throughout a lot of these panels around the page. You've got these tabs highlighted in blue and gray right up at the top of all of these different panels. So remember that you can tab through some of these different views. You can click over, for instance, to a global snapshot. Now, this is going to step you back from the U.S., show you what's happening around the world. With some different, all of these actually are going to be ETFs, but some different ETFs that track what's happening across the equity indexes around the entire world. So things like the entire world, including the US, or the entire world excluding the US. You've got those two indexes right up at the top here. You've got developed and emerging markets. You've got EFA, Europe, Eurozone, Asia, even Latin America in there. So at a quick glance, this is going to tell you exactly what's happening throughout the world across those major indexes. Now, of course, there's a good chance that you want to drill into the US markets, US indexes. So that's going to be the default here. You can quickly click over to those US indexes and get a very, very comprehensive list, starting with the major exchanges, but also drilling into major indexes like the S&P indexes, the Dow. You've even got micro caps in there, the Russell indexes as well. And one of my personal favorites, it does update on a little bit of a different time frame, but the value line arithmetic index, actually what we call the average stock index, down there at the bottom. So some really, really interesting things in this page. Now, if you want to step back from the U.S. again, though, you want to kind of blend that global snapshot and that U.S. indexes view that we're looking at, you can also jump over to the country funds tab. Especially right now, this has been one that is fascinating to watch for the current market. This is going to bring in country funds for all of the individual countries around the entire world. So all of those equity markets for all of the different countries around the world that are covered here. These are all going to be ETFs, so they trade constantly during the session. Really easy to follow. And of course, once again, you can click on any of these names to open up a chart. So for instance, let's say you wanted to see what's happening with Brazil. Well, give that a click. You'll open up a chart for that EWZ index for Brazil, the country fund for Brazil. So really, really easy to navigate around here. Now, let's talk about what's in these individual panels in the equities indexes. So across this, of course, we've got standard price information, last and change and percent change. But to the right of that, we've got some really, really interesting data points here. These are things that I like to follow, and so we've brought them into this page. We've got new columns for daily streak and weekly streak. The daily streak is going to tell you how many days in a row this thing has closed up or closed down. It is going to bring in price information for the latest session. So as you see some of those things kind of play with the edge of a streak, closing up or closing down, you'll actually see these streak values change in real time. That was something I was watching, for instance, earlier today with the Dow transports closing, above and below some different streak values. The weekly streak is going to show you the number of weeks in a row that this thing has closed up or closed down. A really, really helpful way to tell when a market is extended. When you see a long, long streak, either to the upside or to the downside, that could be an indication that things are about to reverse, simply because we don't see things trend higher or lower for 20 days in a row or 15 weeks in a row, things like that. So the streak values can tell you when things are overbought or oversold. Now, similarly, we also have columns for the percentage above or below key moving averages that all of these indexes are trading. So you've got the 20-day exponential moving average, the 50-day simple moving average, and the 200-day simple moving average as well. This is going to tell you where these indexes are trading relative to their own key moving averages. So again, if something is trading far, far, far above its 200-day moving average or far, far, far below its 200-day moving average, that can tell you something about that index. It might be at a point where it is so oversold that it starts to bounce simply because it is way too extended away from some of those key moving averages, basically a mean regression type of thing. So when you see some of these percentages get really, really, really stretched, we're seeing that a little bit right now with something like microcaps, for instance. You can see this is trading 18%, over 18% below its 200-day moving average. That is an incredibly oversold index. So these columns can help you tell whether something is overbought or oversold. But also really nice to see where things are trading relative to some of those key moving averages. I like to follow the 50 very closely, so that is one that always catches my eye. But easy to follow that on this page. Now, up at the top of the panel, I want to draw your attention to a couple of different things. First off, we've got tooltips across this page to help you really understand what's on the page, why it's on the page, how to interpret different things. So look for those little eye icons in the top right corner of any of the panels here. And that's going to open up a helpful menu that gives you a little bit more context, gives you a little bit more of a description of what's here and how to use it. These can be very, very helpful as you move through this new page, giving you more information about exactly what's here. Right next to that, we also have a charts menu. If you open that up, we've got some links out to individual chart lists that kind of follow along with the different tabs or the different panels that we have throughout this page. So for instance, if you wanted to open up a chart list that includes all of the charts for those US equity indexes that we have in this page, you can give that a click. That's going to open up right in a new tab, and you can simply scroll through all of the charts for all of those indexes. If you're a StockCharts member, you can also save that to a chart list in your own account. Give that big green button a click. That'll actually save those charts, save that list right to your own account. So a couple of helpful little resources right up at the top of every panel. You'll see that as we keep going through this page. At the bottom of every panel, we also have some helpful kind of extension resources that are related to the things that are in that panel. For instance, if you're looking at some of these major indexes, you're looking at what the S&P 500 is doing, what the Dow is doing, different things like that. Well, there's a good chance that you're going to want to see the individual members of that index. So you can click those buttons down below. In this case, that's going to open up our index members page, and it's going to show you all of the individual stocks within the S&P 500, within the S&P 400, within the NASDAQ 100, some of those key indexes. So it makes it really, really easy to jump to a resource like that. Finally, we've got something that is near and dear to my heart. This is a tactical timing chart that I like to follow for very, very short-term price action, especially in a crazy market like we have here right now, though. This can be very, very helpful. So this is a very short-term chart with a 5-day moving average. This is a 30-minute chart with a 5-day moving average. Gives you a really, really interesting view at the short-term price action. So we've got that linked there at the bottom. We've also got a link to a whole chart list full of indexes with that chart style right up at the top. So you'll see that repeated throughout this page. We're spending a little bit more time on kind of the structure here of this equities panel, because this is kind of repeated throughout this page. For a lot of these different panels that we're going to show you, you've got those tooltips up at the top, you've got those chart links up at the top, and at the bottom, you also have some additional resources that you're going to want to be aware of. Now, one thing to mention with the tables on this page as well, we mentioned that you can click on anything to open up a chart of that. You can also, as with any of the other data table pages around the StockCharts platform, you can give any of these column headers a click to sort by that column. So by default, these different tabs are going to be sorted in a way that we have custom organized. But for instance, if you're looking at the country funds, let's say, and you want to see which countries are furthest from their 200-day moving average, well, you can sort by that 200-day moving average column, and you'll see that it's now resorted that entire table from top to bottom based on that. If you want to see percent change values, for instance, you can see that in the latest session, we only had one country close higher. New Zealand was the only country that was up on the day. You can quickly see exactly how everything has been moving. So remember that you can click on different things to open up those charts. You can also click on those column headers to sort any of these tables. So, like I said, this page is about a lot more than just what's happening with the major indexes, what's happening at the top level of the market. The whole point of this page is that it allows you to really drill into the price action, drill into things like sentiment, drill into things like breadth, the sectors, the industries, so many different things. So when you get down below that first panel, that equities panel, that's where things really start to fly. We have a whole bunch of different features that are intended to give you a better sense of the market's internals and exactly what's kind of moving and shaking beneath the surface. For starters, we've got one of my favorite features pulled from our members dashboard. This is our market factors panel. Now it's going to start on the larger map. You can switch over to the basic map if you do like that smaller version. I like this extended map though. What this does, it brings in a whole bunch of different factors, different ways to kind of spin the markets based on size. So you've got large, mid, and small caps here on the left. And for each of those different cap levels, we've got different factors that you can sort of weight it by or spin it by or organize it by. So we've got value stocks. How are value stocks doing? How are the main indexes doing? That's the core. How are growth stocks doing for large and mid and small caps? And then we have some really unusual, unique ways to spin those different indexes. We've got a revenue-weighted column. We've got a momentum-weighted column. We've got a low volatility group, and we've got a quality group. So for a market that is moving up and down, so volatile, different things happening on a daily basis, crazy different corners of the market moving in different ways, this market factors map can be incredibly helpful. It really tells you what different areas in the market investors are most focused on. It's not enough to just know, well, the S&P 500 went up today. You want to drill into the S&P 500. You want to say, well, did the S&P 500 go up, but it was led by growth, or was it led by more risk-off corners like value and low volatility? That's what this market factors map is intended to help you do. Now, on an ugly session like the one that we just had right before recording this thing, everything is deep in the red, and so this factors map doesn't give you quite as unique of a view, but especially when we have more of a split market with things going up and things going down and rotation happening beneath the surface, this can really tell you where investors are rotating to beneath the surface of the market. So a really, really interesting one. Once again, to draw your attention back to this, we've got our little tooltip right up at the top. So it gives you a helpful description of exactly what this does. And you can click on any of the factors in this map to open up a chart of that index. So for instance, here we've clicked on RWK. That's going to open that up in a new tab. Going to show you that momentum weighted mid-cap index. You can also open a market carpet down at the bottom. Again, we've got those help resources at the bottom of a lot of these panels. Next up, we've got our Keller market model. This was designed by David Keller, our former chief market strategist, now a close partner of ours, been contributing for a long, long time. You've probably followed a lot of David's work over the years. This is David's macro and stocks models, his kind of market models, to tell you what's the short-term trend of the market, what's the intermediate-term trend of the market, and what's the long-term trend of the market. Now, we've got two different models to focus on here. David's macro model brings in stocks, bonds, commodities, and the U.S. dollar. And you can see for each of those, the short-term trend, the medium-term trend, and the long-term trend is printed right here in the table. If you want to drill into stocks, which is what we keep the default focused on here, we've got large caps, we've got mid caps, we've got small caps, and we have more of that tech-heavy NASDAQ 100 as well. Now, these charts are, these readings are based off of custom curated PPO values, PPO charts that Dave has put together. So if you want to see exactly how these different short, medium-term, and long-term trends are derived, well, once again, you can simply give this a click. This is going to open up the market model chart that shows you exactly how those values are created. You can save this in your own account. You can make this part of your process if you like the chart version. So the long-term trend up here in the top in purple, the medium-term trend in green, and the short-term trend in blue. These are the PPO settings that Dave uses determine those trend values for those models. So really, really interesting there. And once again, you can open up those charts. If you want to get those charts right into your own account, look for that charts button up in the top right corner. From there, we've sort of covered off what's happening across the board, across some of the major indexes. We've started drilling in beneath the surface, but next up, we really start to dig down a little bit deeper. So we've got breadth panels, two sort of different flavors of breadth panels. We've got a breadth panel over here on the left that's got two tabs on it, advancing issues and declining issues, as well as how different indexes are sitting kind of relative to key moving averages. So we'll see that in just a sec. And then over here, we've got our bullish percent indexes. Now, these are a breadth measure, but we've kind of broken them out into their own panel to really give them a little bit of space. So we'll start over here on the left. We've got our advancing and declining breadth panel. This is going to tell you the percentage of stocks across these major averages that are advancing on the day or declining on the day. Now, we've got our little legend down here at the bottom to tell you exactly what these different values mean. So the table is going to be color-coded. Remember, the more green you see, the healthier the market is, the stronger the market is. The more red you see, the weaker the market is. If we have a small number of stocks advancing, nothing really going up, and a large number declining, well, both of those are actually very bearish readings. So we're going to color both of those columns. If we have a really positive day, really healthy day in the market, things moving to the upside, we're going to have a lot of stocks advancing and not very many stocks declining. And so this table would look a little bit different. It'd be colored green. So really, really nice view. I'm loving this, especially when we've got such huge fluctuations in the market like we have right now. This breadth panel in particular has been a huge, huge one. Very, very helpful. Once again, you've got your chart lists linked there in the top right corner of that panel as well. Now, my other favorite panel on this, favorite sort of tab view on this page is our moving averages breadth table. So again, for those key indexes, the NYSE, the NASDAQ, and the S&P 500, 400, 600, 100, all those S&P indexes, this is going to show you the percentage of stocks within those indexes trading above key moving averages. We've got the classic mix of the 20-day, the 50-day, the 100-day, and the 200-day. This is going to tell you how many stocks in those different indexes are trading above those key moving averages. So if you want to see this in an even more kind of visual way, again, we can click on any of the names here to open up a chart of that index. So this is what this is based on. This is actually the sort of the values from that table charted on the screen with the S&P 500. You can open up those really, really easily. But having all of this in one table makes it very, very easy to see. Do we have the indexes with a large number of stocks above those key moving averages, kind of a bullish reading? Or for across the board for all of these different indexes, do we have nothing sitting above those key moving averages? If nothing in any of these indexes is trading above its 200-day or its 100-day, those are very bearish readings. That's what we're seeing right now. Lots and lots of red in this table because for sort of across the board for all these indexes, we just don't have very many stocks that are trading above those key moving averages. Everything is getting hit and moving to the downside and sitting below those MAs, and we can see that very, very easily with a table like this. Now, similarly, we've got our BPI tables. This is going to tell you the percentage of stocks across those indexes that are on a PNF buy signal. That is a bullish thing, PNF buy signal. If we don't have a lot of stocks on a PNF buy signal, these readings are going to be red. They're going to be very bearish. If we have a healthier market with a lot of stocks on a PNF buy signal, these BPIs are going to be higher numbers, and this is going to be colored green. So again, makes it really, really easy to see what's the sort of breadth status of the market right now. Do we have a market that is just really, really weak breadth and things are pretty ugly? Do we have a really bullish market with really strong breadth? Or are we somewhere in between? If you see a lot of yellow on this screen, that means things are in more of a neutral reading, and it tells you a lot about kind of what's happening, again, with the internals of the market. It's about drilling further down into the page, more than just what's happening with the major indexes. So across the board here, we've got our index BPIs. We also have sector BPIs. So for the individual sectors of the market, what are those bullish percents? And then we also bring in a chart, similar to what we had with the other screen, where we clicked on that chart to open it up in a new tab. We've got a chart here that actually prints all of these different major BPIs in one view. So at a quick glance, you can get a little bit more context, see how those have been moving over time. If you want to give that a click, again, that's the theme of the day here. You can give that chart a click to open it up in a new tab, save it to your account, modify it, make it your own, anything that you want to do. So we're gonna pick up the pace a little bit here because we got quite a lot to keep reviewing here. Next up, we have new highs and new lows. Again, kind of another way to think about breadth. What's the percentage of stocks making new highs or the percentage of stocks making new lows? If we have a large number of stocks making new highs, that's a bullish thing for the market. If we have a large number of stocks making new lows across these key timeframes, that's a bearish thing for the market. So this is going to be a table full of those key timeframes that we typically like to think of: all-time highs, 52-week highs, 9-month, 6-month, 3-month, and 1-month highs. What is the percentage of stocks in these indexes, these key indexes that we like to follow, making new highs or making new lows? Again, when you see high numbers in the new lows table, you know that's a bearish thing for the market. When you see high numbers in the new highs table, that's going to be a very bullish thing for the market. Now, we can do this on a daily basis, but we can also do this on a weekly basis. So by default, when you're looking at the daily highs, that's going to be for the latest session. How many stocks have made a new 52-week high, for instance, in the S&P 500 in the latest session? What we might want to do is step back a little bit, though, and think about how many stocks have made a new high this week at some point. So we can click over to these weekly highs and weekly lows tables, and that's going to actually change the way that that data is derived. It's going to show us stocks that have made a new high at some point that week. So it's going to be stocks that have hit a new 52-week high at some point that week, or hit a new 6-month high at some point that week. Same thing with the lows. If you want to see this visualized in more of a chart type of format, I recommend clicking over to that chart table or chart tab. And you can actually do this for both the new highs and the new lows simultaneously. When you put these together, you get the new highs list and the new lows list right next to each other. This is a very, very helpful way to see exactly what's happening in the markets. Now, right now, you can see these huge spikes in the number of stocks making new lows, and you can see that the new highs list has just been declining. We've seen not a lot of stocks making new highs. This has been an incredibly weak market, and this is a very powerful way to see it. You can see those charts right there. Once again, give those a click, save them to your own account, bring them into your own process. But if you want to use them right here on this page, we've got that available to you. Next up, we're going to drill into sentiment. So these are some of the key sentiment indexes that we like to follow. The VIX, first up, is one of the biggest volatility measures that we like to look at. Now, we did have that mini chart of the VIX right up at the top of the screen, but if you want to drill into it even a little bit more, you've got that VIX value down here. We can see a very elevated VIX reading right now at 40, an incredibly bearish reading there for the VIX, and only moving higher. Next up, we've got some really interesting other metrics that I like to follow. A lot of other chartists do as well. We've got put-call ratios for both the total stock market as well as, or total market, as well as just the equity indexes as well. So we've got both of those here. And then we've got the NAAIM exposure index. This is how professional money managers are playing this market. Are they more exposed on the long side, or are they more in cash, not a lot of long exposure? That's exactly what that tells you. It's a weekly survey of professional money managers telling you how they're actually positioned in the market. So when you combine these two, you're basically seeing how traders are positioning out there in the market. Are they traders playing the market with more puts? Are they more bearish? Or are traders playing the market with more calls? Are they a little bit more bullish? And then you're comparing that to how investment managers are positioning. The RIDEX asset ratio, another one that gives you an interesting insight into sort of bearish or bullish positioning, bearish assets and money market funds versus bullish assets. So one that's definitely interesting to see on the chart. We're going to see that in just a sec. And then finally, we have our classic AA bulls versus bears survey. So every week, the AA surveys its members, surveys individual investors out there that are part of the organization, and determines, how are investors feeling right now? How is the retail space feeling right now? So we can subtract the number of bulls from the number of bears and actually get a reading on that to determine kind of sentiment overall among individual investors in the AA. So another index that we like to follow there. We can put all of that stuff together onto some really, really interesting charts. So we've got these other tabs. Of course, we've got a tab for the VIX, gives you a little bit more context. In addition to that mini chart that we had up at the top of the screen, gives you a little more context here on the VIX, though. But we can take some of those other indexes and actually put those together onto a really interesting positioning and exposure chart. So up here at the top, we can see that put-call ratio. This is the equity-only put-call ratio. But we can see our traders positioned, more bearish or a little bit more bullish. And then we can also see the professional money manager indexes down here at the bottom of the screen. So really nice to be able to actually pull up a chart of that. Again, if you click on any of these indexes, though, you can also open up a chart of any of those. And we've pre-formatted all of this for you, so it all makes sense. You don't have to go sort of changing anything yourself. So a couple of different tabs there to help you understand sentiment, understand investor behavior out there in the market right now. Similarly, we have an offense versus defense panel. This tells you some key ratios that, again, are intended to address sort of investor sentiment. Are investors positioning more in offensive corners of the market or more in defensive corners of the market? If these ratios are moving to the upside, that means investors are favoring offense. Things are a little bit more risk on. If these ratios are moving to the downside, that means investors are favoring more defensive corners of the market, a little bit more risk off. So things like consumer discretionary, very offensive, versus staples, very defensive. Those ratios are all right here for you. So especially when you change this out to be a longer term time frame, we can see, for instance, over the last 1 month, all of those ratios have been moving lower. That means a lot of defensive posturing out there in the market. Tells you something about what's happening beneath the surface. So really interesting to see all of those across different time frames. But then once again, you've got those charts that you can turn to for a little bit more context. So this will give you a little more history. Here we have that defense versus or discretionary versus staples ratio up the top. We've got the equal weight flavor versus or next up. We've got technology versus utilities and some of those other indexes as well. So you can open up that chart really easily to actually get a little bit more context to that. I like to zoom out the time frame as I go a little bit lower on this page. I find that that's helpful, especially for this offense versus defense panel. Zoom that out to maybe 1 week, 1 month. Tells you a little bit more about what's happening out there over a longer period of time. Not as much about the day-to-day. It's a little bit more about a longer period of time there. Next up, we're going to drill into U.S. sectors and U.S. industries as well. Now, this is kind of the classic view. You want to bring in those sectors. Once again, we've got our daily streaks and our weekly streaks, as well as the scooter values. That's our StockCharts technical rank. This, I find, is an incredibly useful tool for the sectors in particular. Understanding which sectors are the strongest, which sectors are the weakest, the scooter makes that very, very easy. If you sort this panel by scooter value, it's going to quickly show you from a technical perspective which sectors are leading, which sectors are lagging. Now, we've also included the relevant benchmark, the relevant index in that group as well. So you can actually see how the sectors are moving relative to something like the S&P 500. This is going to change depending on which tab you are on. So we've got the sectors not only in their traditional cap weight flavor, but also equal weight sectors in here as well, and the small cap sectors in addition to that. So you can click across these three tabs, and you'll see that the relevant benchmark actually changes depending on the tab that you're on. Here we have now the equal weight S&P 500, and on the small cap tab, we're going to have the S&P 600 small cap index. So really, really nice to be able to compare how these different sectors are moving over different time frames and how those scooter values look. Again, what are the strongest sectors, but what's actually outpacing the benchmark, the relevant index? That's a key question to ask for that panel. We can do very similar things over here in the U.S. Industries group, but we've got two different flavors over here. First up, we've got our default view. This is going to be bellwether industries, what we consider sort of bellwethers for the market as a whole. These are typically things that are leading, a little bit more offensive in a lot of ways, semiconductors, things like that. Retail is kind of another one of those. But these bellwether industries are considered sort of some of the most important, some of the ones that investors and strategists like to follow most closely. Now, if you see these industries doing really, really well, that tells you something about the market. Some say, for instance, it's tough to feel really bearish about the market when you see semiconductors leading. When you see semiconductors just moving to the upside, it really gives you kind of a bullish sort of feel good type of vibe, right? You can see that either happening or not happening with a panel like this. So being able to quickly tell what some of those key industries are doing, and especially relative to the S&P 500, a very, very crucial tool on this page. Again, gauging kind of sentiment, how are investors feeling about the market. We can, however, click over to the Dow Industries. This is going to bring in the entire group, all of the, I believe it's 104 Dow industry groups on this page as well. So if you really want to get a detailed view of what's happening across those different industries, again, you can drill into every layer of the markets here, down into the sectors and even down into the industry groups as well. So really nice to be able to pull that up. Again, you've got clickable links here, but you've got those chart lists up in the top right corner. So if you do want to give either of those a click and open those up, save those lists to your own account, you've got that available to you. Next up, we start to step away from the equity market. So we've got an intermarket analysis panel based on the classic work by John Murphy, a very, very good friend of ours, long-term friend of StockCharts. This is going to tell you across those key asset classes, stocks, bonds, commodities, oil, gold, and the US dollar, what's working, what's leading, what's lagging. Those intermarket relationships, how some of those different asset classes move together or against each other, that is a crucial part of understanding what's happening not just with stocks, but throughout the broader financial markets. So a very cool view here, being able to quickly see what some of those major asset classes are doing, and again, across different time frames. So if we change this to be 1 month, 3 months, 6 month, year to date, something like that, we've got a lot of sort of power here with that Timeframe menu, combining that with these different tables. You can see which asset classes are leading over different time frames, but we can also get a quick sense over the last year of what's working and what is not. So this is going to take those asset classes from the table, and it's going to plot those, again, over the last year, show you which ones are the top performers, which ones are the leaders, which ones are the laggards. This is a classic way to think about intermarket analysis. We want to do that on a relative basis. Being able to see all of those together on the same chart is a very, very helpful view. In this case, we can see that over the last year, gold has been an absolute stud, flying higher by almost 36%, outpacing everything else among the group. You can quickly see that here with this little sort of smaller chart, but if you want to give that a click, again, everything on this page is clickable. You can open that up in a larger view and actually save that to your own account. So understanding those intermarket relationships, that's kind of our next stop on this page as we start to leave the equity markets and think about other asset classes. And we do the same. We start to drill into some of those other asset classes as we go towards the bottom of this page. So we've got a very unique view of bonds here. We bring in all of our end-of-day yields, or during the session, you can actually turn that end-of-day checkbox off, and you'll get some of those intraday indexes as well, plus the Fed funds rate, something that is crucial to watch, as well as S&P 500 yield, a really interesting one that we like to keep in this table. It gives you kind of a little bit more context for where those rates are relative to the yield that you can pick up by owning stocks. So a really, really nice view, especially with that end of day only checkbox turned on. Now, these are, of course, going to be end of day indexes, so you got to wait until the session ends to get these values. But being able to see all of those key yields, key U.S. Treasury yields, right there in one view from top to bottom, and compare that to Fed funds rate and S&P 500 yield, a really, really nice view. You can also get a quick sense of where the yield curve is. Now, this is based on the classic 2 versus 10 spread. There are tons and tons of different ways to think about the yield curve. We're going to show you in just a second one way to do that. But at a quick glance, you can tell, is the yield curve inverted or is the yield curve normalized? If this spread is above 0, that's going to be a normalized yield curve. That means the 10 is above the 2. That's how we want things to be. When the yield curve flips and the 2 actually crosses above the 10, shorter-term yields crossing above longer-term yields, this is going to flip. This is going to say inverted, and you'll see that spread right here. Now, the chart on the right is going to bring all that together. So similar to what we had with the Intermarket chart, you've got all of those different yields charted right there up at the top, and you've got that 10 versus 2 spread down at the bottom. So you can quickly see what that yield curve looks like, how it's moving over time. This gives you some nice context. So this is a 5-year chart. This is going to go back a little ways, give you some context for how rates have moved, not just over the last couple months or the last year, but actually how rates have been moving over a longer period of time. I recommend you open this one up and change that range on it, though. Make it something even longer. Really understand how rates have moved over a long period of time, not just how they're moving in the short term. So a really nice view, though, of rates right there. And if you want to see even more detailed information about the yield curve, you can use that dynamic yield curve tool. Open that up with the link right at the bottom of this panel. That's going to actually allow you to move through time and see how the yield curve has moved over time. Really, really interesting view. Finally, on this page, down at the very bottom, we have our other asset classes table. Now, in the key assets group, this is based on the assets that I like to follow more on a weekly basis. To be honest, I'm an equities guy. I'm a stock trader. And so I like to follow, some of these different asset classes less on a day-to-day basis and more on a weekly basis, but especially on a weekly basis. This key assets group, these are the ones that I want to know about. And a lot of times I will follow these on a daily basis to see how they're moving. But these to me are some of the most crucial assets to understand and to know about, even if you're not trading commodities. These are or cryptos or anything else. These are still some of the assets that you definitely want to keep a close eye on, even if you're primarily focused on the equity markets. So that key assets table is a really, really helpful one to start with. But if you want to drill in a little bit further to commodities or to currencies, or even open up that crypto tab, that's going to take you to another page that's got a little bit of crypto-specific information on it, but you do have access to that right there. You've got those kind of other drill-in categories here as well. Just like we had with our equities table, you can sort any of these by percent change. You got your streak values in there. Really, really nice to be able to drill into some of those different asset classes beyond equities and beyond bonds as well. Now, for all of these, once again, you can give any of these links a click, and that's going to open up a chart that is pre-formatted to work for that index. So, for instance, we can click on heating oil. Now we're looking at a chart that's nicely formatted for that heating oil index. It's going to give you something that is relevant. You get a longer-term moving average. There's the 200 in green, and you get the 14-period RSI on the bottom as well. So remember that pretty much everything on this page is clickable. It makes it very, very easy to navigate around. You don't have to worry about setting up your charts. This page is kind of doing it for you. And of course, in the top right corner of all of those different panels, you've got links to the chart lists that are full of all the charts for those assets. So really nice way to save this stuff to your account. Now, speaking of saving this stuff to your account, we are also going to be bringing out a new chart pack, a market summary chart pack that's designed to pair beautifully with this page. So if you install that chart pack in your account, it's free if you're a StockCharts member. All you got to do is hit the button to install it. We'll have more information on that very, very soon. But once that chart pack comes out, you're going to be able to install that into your account, and all of these charts that we're talking about, all of these lists, will be added right to your StockCharts account. So you'll be able to use this page, follow along, use this as a resource to understand what's happening in the markets, but you'll also get all of these different charts in your own account without having to go and save individual links. So for now, if you do want to save any of these lists, any of these charts to your account, you can use that just like we showed, the big green button up in the top right corner, open up those different chart list links and save that to your account. But keep an eye out for that new market summary chart pack that's going to be coming out very, very soon. It's going to be a great addition, a great enhancement to this page in particular that'll pair very, very nicely together. So we absolutely flew through this thing. I know that was quite a lot to digest. But once again, I want you to think about coming back to this video. Sit with this page, use this tool in your own process. Start to kind of develop your own routines with it, and then come on back to this video. And I'm sure that some of these different things that we've touched on here today are going to make even more sense. There is a lot to unpack on this page. Definitely a little bit of a learning curve to it. But trust me, all of the data that you need to see and to know to truly understand what's happening in the markets, not just at that top level, but as we get into market internals, breadth, sentiment, investor behavior, how things are moving between asset classes, sectors, and industries, it's all captured on this page. And it gives you a truly deep sense of what's happening beneath the surface of the market. Now, especially right now, we've got a market that has done some crazy, crazy things in the last few weeks. And there's a lot of people wondering, how did this happen? What's going on? There's so much to understand and to unpack. This is the exact type of tool that's going to help you stay ahead of that price action, understand how some of these tides are changing even before the big indexes sell off. So definitely a crucial resource to start to bring into your process and make part of your daily routines, your weekly routines, so on and so forth. Now, of course, we would love to hear from you. What is it missing? What do you still need? What are you finding? If you got any thoughts at all on our new market summary page, we would love to hear from you. Reach out to our support team at any time. Reach out to me on Twitter or anywhere, and we'll get some answers for you and things like that. But we would love to hear your feedback on this page. I am having a blast using this thing. It is, like I said, really, really been helpful, especially in the current market environment. I'm sure that you guys are going to get a ton out of it as you get into it and start using this in your own process. But let us know what you think as always. Keep an eye out for that new market summary chart pack coming out very, very soon. We'll have more information for you on the site and in our Chart Watchers newsletter in particular. So keep an eye out for that. But hopefully you've had fun sitting down with me today, digging into this invaluable new resource here, our new market summary page on StockCharts. It's out there. It's on the site. It's ready for you to pick up and use in your own process now. So have fun using this thing. I'm sure that it's going to give you some very, very unique and powerful perspectives on the markets for years to come. So excited to see what you guys do with this page. Again, my name is Grayson Roze, Chief Strategist here at StockCharts.com. It's been great to be with you. I will see you soon for another one. But until then, chart on, my friends.